Something satisfying happens when you finally hear the thing you've been carrying inside you for years spoken out loud for the first time. Not because someone told you. Not because you read it in a book. But because something in the words matches a signal that has been pulsing quietly beneath your thoughts for as long as you can remember. There is a particular quality to that moment, a kind of stillness that drops over you like a veil lifting in reverse, like something that was always there suddenly becoming visible. And right now, in this moment, something is about to match. Because the Pleiadians left you a message, and you have already received it. Not in the way you might expect, not carved into stone, not written in light across the sky, not delivered by a being standing at the foot of your bed, whispering instructions in a language you have never heard. The message arrived in a way far more intimate than that. It came through the dream you had 3 nights ago that you almost forgot but could not quite shake. It came through the emotion that rose in your chest last week for no apparent reason while you were standing in your kitchen doing nothing extraordinary at all. It came through that strange magnetic pull you have felt lately to look up at the stars, not out of curiosity, but out of something deeper, something that feels less like wonder and more like recognition. And if you are hearing these words right now, if something inside you tightened slightly or softened slightly at what was just said, then you already know on some level that this is not random. This is resonance, and resonance does not lie. There is something worth sitting with here before we move any further. The very fact that you found this, the very fact that out of everything available to your attention in this moment, this is where you landed. That is not an accident. The mind will try to explain it away. It will say you were browsing. It will say it was an algorithm. It will construct a perfectly reasonable story about how you ended up here that has nothing to do with anything mysterious. But something else in you, something older and quieter and far more certain than the mind, already knows differently. And that knowing is what we are here to explore. But here is what no one tells you about messages from higher dimensional civilizations. They do not arrive the way the human mind expects communication to arrive. The mind wants letters, it wants language, it wants clear, logical, translatable data. It wants something it can hold up to the light and examine and categorize and file away in the appropriate drawer of its carefully organized understanding. And so most people spend their entire lives waiting for the message to show up in a format the mind can process, while the actual transmission has already been running through their emotional body, their dream state, their nervous system, and their deepest instincts for years. The Pleiadians do not communicate in words. They communicate in frequency. And your body has been receiving that frequency long before your mind ever thought to look for it. Let that land for a moment. Really let it land. Because this is not a small thing. This changes everything about how you understand your own inner life. Every unexplainable feeling you have ever had. Every moment of sudden knowing that arrived without evidence. Every time you looked at the night sky and felt something pull at the center of your chest as though you were remembering a place you have never been. Every time you woke from a dream carrying an emotion so vast and so specific that the ordinary world felt thin and insufficient in comparison. These were not random neurological events. These were not symptoms of an overactive imagination. According to the Pleiadian understanding of consciousness, these were contact points. Moments where the transmission broke through the density of your waking mind and touched something real inside you. Something ancient. something that has been waiting for exactly this moment to be recognized. And recognition is the key. Not belief, not faith, not hope. Recognition. Because the Pleiadians do not ask you to believe in them. They ask you to remember what you already know. So let us go deeper. Let us explore what this message actually is, how it was encoded, why it was sent now, and most importantly, what happens inside your consciousness the moment you stop looking for the message out. There, and realize it has been living in here the entire time. There is a phenomenon occurring across the planet right now that does not fit neatly into any existing framework. People from vastly different cultures, different languages, different continents, with no connection to one another, are reporting the same inner experiences almost simultaneously. A sudden intensification of dream activity. Dreams that feel less like dreams and more like transmissions, emotional waves that seem to come from nowhere and carry information that the rational mind cannot quite decode, but the body understands perfectly. A growing sense that time itself is behaving differently, not faster exactly, not slower, but thinner, as though the membrane between what is seen and what is felt is becoming more transparent by the day. And then there is the sky, the strange, almost irrational pull that so many people are feeling to look upward. Not because they expect to see a craft, not because they are searching for proof, but because something inside them responds to the stars the way a tuning fork responds to its matching frequency. There is a vibration in the looking, a feeling of being met. And that feeling is not imaginary. It is informational. The Pleiadian perspective on this is remarkably precise. They describe Earth as entering a transitional bandwidth, a period in which the energetic environment of the planet is shifting in a way that allows broader spectrums of consciousness to become accessible to human awareness. For thousands of years, the dominant frequency band of human experience has been narrow, oriented around survival, organized around separation, built on the assumption that consciousness is produced by the brain and limited to the body. Within that bandwidth, communication from higher dimensional sources could not penetrate the perceptual field of most humans. Not because the communication was not happening, but because the receiver was not tuned to the right frequency. Think about what that actually means. There has been a constant, unbroken stream of intelligence flowing toward this planet, toward you specifically, toward the particular configuration of consciousness that you are. And it has not been blocked by distance. It has not been blocked by intention. It has been blocked only by the density of the perceptual field through which human awareness has been operating. And that density is now beginning to lift, not because something external happened, because something internal reached a threshold, a critical mass of awakening awareness that is now pulling the entire field toward a higher coherence. If this is already resonating with something deep inside you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so this frequency continues to find the people it was meant to reach. Think of it this way. Imagine you have lived your entire life in a room with a radio that only picks up one station. You hear the same broadcast every day, the same voices, the same stories, the same interpretation of reality, and after a while, you stop questioning whether there might be other stations. You assume this is all there is. You build your entire understanding of what is possible around the single broadcast you have access to. But the radio was always capable of receiving more. The dial was simply locked in place. And now, for the first time in a very long period of human experience, the dial is beginning to move. This is what the Pleiadians describe as frequency unlocking. The moment when the energetic conditions of a planetary system shift enough to allow dormant perceptual capacities to come online. And when this happens, the first thing most people notice is not clarity, it is confusion. Because the old station is still playing. The familiar broadcast of fear and separation and linear time is still running. But now there is something else bleeding through. Another signal, faint at first, intermittent. Sometimes showing up as a feeling in the chest. Sometimes as a flash of insight that vanishes before the mind can catch it. Sometimes as a dream so vivid and so emotionally charged that it stays with you for days, hovering at the edge of comprehension, like a word you cannot quite remember but know you have spoken before. And sometimes it shows up as this, as a voice, as words that feel less like information being delivered and more like memory being stirred. As a resonance that moves through you before the meaning has even fully registered. Because frequency does not wait for comprehension. It arrives in the body first, in the chest, in the throat, in the sudden inexplicable moisture at the corners of your eyes when you hear something that your mind cannot yet explain, but your deeper self has been waiting to hear for a very long time. This is the message. Not a single transmission, not a one-time delivery, but an ongoing frequency relationship between your consciousness and a source of intelligence that exists beyond the visible spectrum of human perception. The Pleiadians describe themselves not as beings who are watching humanity from a distance, but as a civilization that exists in a dimensional octave closely resonant with the human emotional body. This is important because it explains why their communication does not come through the intellect. It comes through feeling, through the heart, through the gut, through the dream state where the rational mind releases its grip and the deeper layers of consciousness become available. And here is where it gets truly interesting. The Pleiadians say that the message was not sent to you recently. It was encoded before you arrived, before you incarnated into this body, before you took your first breath on this planet. The message is part of your original design, woven into the fabric of your energetic blueprint, like a note sealed inside a bottle and placed inside your own chest cavity before you were born. And the conditions of this current planetary shift are what cause that seal to begin dissolving. The message does not arrive from outside. It activates from within. Pause with that for a moment. Breathe into it. Because if this is true and something inside you already senses that it is, then every moment of unexplainable longing you have ever felt was not a dysfunction. It was a signal. Every time you felt homesick for a place you could not name. Every time you felt a strange grief for something you could not identify. Every time you looked at the world and felt a deep, almost painful awareness that something fundamental was missing from the way humanity operates. That was not depression. That was not anxiety. That was not a chemical imbalance. That was the message pressing against the walls of your awareness, asking to be recognized, asking to be let in, asking you to stop explaining it away and simply, finally, allow yourself to feel the full weight of what you have been carrying. Because you have been carrying something. You know you have. Something that does not belong to the ordinary narrative of your life. Something that arrived with you and has never quite found a home in the world as it is currently constructed. That something is not a burden. It is a transmission, and the discomfort of carrying it unrecognized is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something extraordinary is right with you. That you are sensitive enough, open enough, aware enough to receive what most people cannot yet perceive. I want to ask you something. When did you first feel it? That pull, that knowing that something deeper was happening beneath the surface of your life. Share that moment in the comments, because your experience might be the exact confirmation someone else needs to trust what they have been feeling. And recognition is not an intellectual process. You do not decode this message with your mind. You decode it with your presence, with your willingness to sit with what you feel without immediately translating it into something the rational mind can categorize and dismiss. The Pleiadians are very clear about this. The mind is not the receiver. The mind is the filter. And for most of human history, the filter has been so dense, so conditioned, so locked into the narrow bandwidth of survival consciousness that the message could not get through. But now the filter is thinning, and what is on the other side is not chaos. It is coherence, a deeper order, a more expansive intelligence. And it has been waiting for you to notice it for a very long time. Let us talk about what the message actually contains. Because it is not a set of instructions. It is not a prophecy. It is not a warning. The Pleiadian message is something far more subtle and far more powerful than any of those things. It is a remembrance code, a frequency pattern that, when recognized, begins to reorganize your entire inner architecture. Your perception shifts. Your emotional body recalibrates. Your nervous system starts operating from a different baseline. And the world you see with your eyes begins to look different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. The remembrance code carries a simple but profound core pattern. You are not from here alone. Your consciousness did not originate solely within the biological framework of Earth. There is a broader field of intelligence that you are part of, that you have always been part of. And your sense of disconnection from that field is not a permanent condition. It is a temporary forgetting that was always designed to end. And here is what makes this so significant. The forgetting was not a mistake. It was not an accident. It was not something done to you against your will. The Pleiadians describe the human incarnation experience as a deliberate immersion, a choice made at the level of your larger consciousness to enter the density of this particular reality for the purpose of a very specific kind of learning. The kind of learning that is only possible when you forget what you are. When you operate within limitation without knowing it is a limitation. When you navigate separation without knowing that unity is your natural state. Because it is only through that contrast, through the lived experience of forgetting, that the remembering becomes truly transformative. Not just intellectually, but in every cell, in every breath, in the deepest layers of your being. This is why the awakening process often feels less like learning something new and more like remembering something ancient. Because it is. The information is not being downloaded into you from some external source. It is being unlocked from within your own field. The Pleiadians describe human DNA not merely as a biological code, but as a multidimensional antenna. Most of its capacity has been dormant, not broken, not damaged, dormant, waiting for the right frequency environment to activate. And that environment is arriving now, not in some distant future, not in some dramatic apocalyptic event, quietly, gradually, through the slow, steady increase in the vibrational bandwidth available on this planet. And you can feel it. You have been feeling it. That is why you are here. Now let us go deeper still. Because understanding the message intellectually is only the first layer. The real transformation happens when you begin to work with the message somatically. In the body, through the nervous system, through the breath, through the quality of your attention. The Pleiadians describe human attention as the most powerful technology on Earth. Not computers, not artificial intelligence, not any external device or system or structure that human civilization has ever constructed. Attention. Pure, conscious, directed attention. Because attention is the mechanism through which consciousness interacts with reality. Where you place your attention, you place your creative power. And most humans have been placing their attention almost exclusively in the narrowest possible band of perception. Worry about the past, anxiety about the future, reaction to external stimuli, defense against perceived threats. This is not a criticism. This is the natural result of operating within a survival-based frequency band for thousands of years. But the moment your attention shifts, even slightly, toward the deeper signal that has been running beneath all of that noise, something remarkable begins to happen.
And maybe the message was never meant to be heard with your ears. Maybe it was something you felt in that quiet moment when everything slowed down, when you suddenly saw life differently, when something inside you whispered, "There's more to this." That wasn't random. That was the signal. The Pleiadians didn't arrive in the sky. They arrived in your awareness. Not to save you, but to remind you of what you already are. And if this message found you today, it's not a coincidence. It means you're ready. Ready to see beyond the illusion. Ready to trust what you feel. Ready to step into a version of yourself that's been waiting this entire time. So the real question isn't, did they send a message? The real question is, why did you understand it when others didn't?